Gato Jayam Mudiraye. For reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we first offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan. Unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and Srila Vyasadeva, the author. A regular attendance and classes on the Bhagavatam by rendering service to the devotees. All that is troublesome within the heart is destroyed to practically nil, and thus loving service unto the glorious Lord, who is praised with transcendental hymn, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Alrighty, so 2 verses, 11 and 12, 12 on the board. I'll start with 11 and read the Sanskrit here. It's a nice sloka, but there's no purport to it. Glasses. I can see if those glasses in there. Thank you. Thank you. Gotta get my shield clean today. Gotta go for it. Cleaning. Okay. Ashwavat sit swashrishtasu sahasram parivat saran Narayano nama yadappa purusho bhavaha aswavat sit swashristasu sahasram Parivatsaran Tena Narayano Nama Yadappa Purushodbhava. Translation, please repeat. The Supreme Person is not impersonal.
It's not impersonal.
And therefore is distinctly a Nara or person. Therefore the transcendental water created from the Supreme Nara is known as Nara. And because he lies down on that water, he is known as Narayana. Okay, text number 12. Okay, please repeat. Dvayam karma chakalascha Svabhavo jiva eva cha Yadanugrahata shanti Na shanti yad upekshaya Dvayam karma chakalascha Svabhavo jiva eva cha Yadanugrahata shanti Na shanti yad upekshaya Dvavyam karma chakalascha Svabhavo jiva eva cha Yadanugrahata shanti Na shanti yad upekshaya
Dravyam karmascha kalascha
Svabhavo jiva eva cha
Yadanugrahata shanti Na shanti yad upekshaya
Dvavyam karma chakalascha
Svabhavo jiva eva cha
Svabhavo jiva eva cha
Yadanugrahata shanti
Yadanugrahata Shanti
Nashantiya Rupesaya.
Shantiya Rupekshaya
Dravyam Karma Changalascha.
Vavyam Kama Chakalascha
Svabhavo Jiva Evacha.
Svabhavo Jiva Evacha
Yadanugrahata Shanti.
Yadanugrahata Shanti Nashantiya Rupekshaya. Okay, anyone else? Vavyam Kama Chakalascha Svabhavo Jiva Evacha Yadanugrahata Shanti Nashantiya Rupekshaya.
It is Santi, not Shanti.
Santi,
There's no dot in the top.
Santi, okay. Vavyam,
Dravyam,
physical element.
physical element.
Karma,
Karma,
action.
action.
Cha,
Cha,
in. Kalaha,
kala,
tam. Cha,
cha,
also.
also.
Svabhava,
Svabhava,
jivaha,
jivaha,
the living entity.
the living entities.
Eva,
Eva,
certainly.
certainly.
Cha,
Cha,
also.
also.
Yat,
Yah,
who.
whose.
Anugrata,
Anugrahata,
by the mercy of.
by the mercy of.
Santi,
Santi,
exists.
exists.
Na,
Na,
does not.
does not.
Santi,
Santi,
exists.
exists.
Yat upekshaya,
Yadupekshaya
by negligence.
by negligence.
Translation, please repeat. One should definitely know
One
One
should
should
definitely
definitely
know
that all material ingredients,
that all material ingredients,
activity,
activities,
time,
Time
and mode,
and
and the living entities
and the living entities
who are meant to enjoy
who are meant to enjoy
them all
them all
exist by His mercy only.
exist by His mercy only.
And as soon as He does not care for them,
And as soon as He does not care for them,
everything becomes non-existent.
everything becomes non-existent.
One should definitely know that all material ingredients, activities, time, and mode, and the living entities who are meant to enjoy them all, exist by His mercy only. And as soon as He does not care for them, everything becomes non-existent. Srila Prabhupada's divine purpose. The living entities are the enjoyers of the material ingredients, time, mode, etc. Because they want to lord it over the material nature. The Lord is the supreme enjoyer, and the living entities are meant to assist the Lord in His enjoyment, and thus participate in the transcendental enjoyment of everyone. The enjoyer and the enjoyed both participate in enjoyment, but diluted by the illusory energy, the living entities want to become the enjoyer like the Lord, although they are not meant for such enjoyment. The jivas, the living entities, are mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita is the Lord's superior nature, or Paraprakriti. And so also it is mentioned in the Vishnu Purana. Therefore, the living entities are never the Purushas, or the factual enjoyers. As such, the spirit of enjoyment by the living entity in the material world is false. In the spiritual world, the living entities are pure in nature, and therefore they are associates in the enjoyment of the Supreme Lord. In the material world, the spirit of enjoyment of the living entities, by dint of their own actions, karma, gradually fades by the laws of karma. And thus, the illusory enjoyment, thus the illusory energy dictates in the ears of the conditioned souls that they should become one with the Lord. This is the last snare of the illusory energy. When the last illusion is also cleared off by the mercy of the Lord, the living entity again becomes reinstated in his original position and thus becomes actually liberated. For this attainment of liberation from the material clutches, the Lord creates the material world, maintains it for some time, in parentheses, 1,000 years of his measurement is stated in the previous verse, close parentheses. And then again, annihilates it by his will. The living entities are therefore completely dependent on the mercy of the Lord, and all their so-called enjoyments by scientific improvement are crushed into dust when the Lord desires. And thus, all their so-called enjoyments by scientific improvement are crushed into dust when the Lord desires. Thus ends the Bhagavatam purport to the 12th sloka, 10th chapter, 2nd canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is the answer. Srila Prabhupada, Ki Jai. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, who has opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge, although they have been shut by the darkness of ignorance. When will, Rupa Goswami, Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, give me shelter under his lotus feet. I'll read the slokas beginning with long purpose yesterday, beginning with the 10th sloka. After separating the different universes, the gigantic universal form of Lord Mahavishnu, which came out of the causal ocean, the place of appearance for the first Purusha avatar, entered into each of the separate universes, desiring to lie on the created transcendental water, Prabhu. That Supreme Person is not impersonal, and therefore is distinctly a Nara or person. Therefore, the transcendental water created from the Supreme Nara is known as Nara. And because he lies down in that water, he is known as Narayan. One should definitely know that all the material ingredients, activities, time, and modes, and the living entities who are meant to enjoy them all, exist by his mercy only. And as soon as he does not care for them, everything becomes non-existent. I'll go over the purport again. The living entities are the enjoyers of the material ingredients, time, modes, etc., because they want to lord it over material nature. So it is not, Krishna's fault, so to speak, that we've put ourselves into this situation. Somehow, however, this ambition to enjoy the material nature, or to lord it over material nature, became manifest. And Krishna provides, just this wonderful creation. not always just bad. It's not always a Kali Yuga, and people in other yugas live much longer, and they have a lot more facility. Although the material world is always a traumatic place, a place of a lot of drama that results in birth, death, old age, and disease. Therefore, it is not ultimately pleasing. But it is a place where the living entity can try to lord it over material nature. Therefore, you see that the suras are trying to maintain the universe under the order of the Lord and simultaneously enjoy their wonderful lives. And at the same time, the asuras are trying to take over because they want to enjoy it all and aren't satisfied with what they have been given. And so you have this constant conflict. And then there are so many other beings in the universe that may become powerful somehow or other, just like Robin was in Rakshasa clan. He became powerful, and he wanted to lord it over, and he was able to defeat the Suras and the Asuras. So this is always going on. We find that in human society. Someone gets powerful and they want to lord it over, and even when we're not powerful, we want to lord it over. We want to enjoy this material nature. It's an addiction to a perverted desire. It's not the pure spiritual desire to help Radha and Krishna enjoy, or to help Krishna enjoy whomever our Lord may be, Sitaram, like that, Lakshmi Narayan, Mahaprabhu. It's not a true affection and love to help the Purusha, the real enjoyer, the supreme enjoyer, to enjoy as he desires. In that position, we're very happy. We're actually ecstatic. We're most happy. Our enjoyment knows no bounds, because in that position, Krishna cares for us eternally. And, he rewards the necessary facility to do that. So therefore, we see, just like him, all of our bodies are Satchidananda, eternal, full of bliss and knowledge, just like Krishna's. Satchidananda Vigraha, an eternal form of bliss and knowledge. But in the perverted state where we want to enjoy ourselves, like in Krishna's position, as the Purusha, as the person who is the Lord of all he surveys. And Krishna has to create a world for that. That's not very difficult, but still it's a pretty great thing from our perspective. Krishna, he manifests all this energy, and he enters into that energy, and he enters into a mystic sleep, and he breathes out all these little bubbles out of the pores of his skin. They come, and he's just breathing in like with a big, big, deep breath as he lays on Seshanag in this manifestation of complete material energy. And then he expands himself into each of these little bubbles, and they expand, and he perspires water from his transcendental body. Again, he lies down in Seshanag within each universe. And from his navel sprouts that lotus. And a person who had qualified themselves and wanted to play such a role, it can only be played in this type of creation. Gets to become the chief engineer, the Brahma of the universe. Actually born directly from Krishna. And then it all begins. And so many other bodies are created to facilitate this creation. Brahma has his sons. Those sons procreate the universe. All the devas are created. the Asuras come, so many other clans of living entities, Gandharvas and Siddhas and Chanaras, and as well as the Suras and Rakshasas and Yakshas. There's so many different types of entities, including human beings, that lie between the subterranean celestial world and the upper celestial planet. And then there are all these rishis and brahmins who teach society the actual purpose. There's a real purpose that an advanced being can understand and utilize to leave this world behind and return to his eternal position. So one has to become an advanced being. And the advanced beings, they try to facilitate us lesser advanced creatures to understand and live our life in such a way that we can also take part in this purpose and go back home to Godhead. But below the human life, the soul is enjoying 8 million other different types of forms, like a hawk and a deer and a rodent. He's doing all these different bodies. They're simply there enjoying, even as a community, like a community of ants. They all work together for the enjoyment of the colony, or a colony of bees. They work together, whereas you have other animals that are very individualistic, especially mammals. You know, some of them live in packs like wolves, but then you have lots of others that they just live with their family, like the armadillos we see around here. They dig holes, and they all go down and they live in that hole. You know, the skunks are like that. The raccoons are something like that. They don't live in packs. They sort of live individually. The possums, they have their own little family. Then they have some where, like you could see even the cats around here, especially the wild ones. You know, the mother may have some kittens, but you very seldom see the father, because they stay away and do their own thing. Even in the big lion kingdom, the male just does his thing, and the female has to raise the children and also do most of the time most of the hunting. So very individualistic types of beings, a lot of these mammals. The wolves, they live in packs so that they can survive. They need their community to live together. It's easy to defeat one big wild dog like a wolf. You know, a human being could pick up a club and just hit him as hard as he could on the head and genuinely knock him unconscious if you're, you know, a strong person who has lived in the woods and understands that, you know, if you don't take action like that, the wolf is going to kill you. So, you know, even in the previous times, the Khattriyas would go out with just a sword and they would have to fight with a lion or a tiger or a wolf by themselves, but they had a weapon. So you just pick up a big baseball bat, you know, and if you hit them in the right spot, you know, that wolf is going to be defeated. But when that wolf is in his pack, you're done for. You're not going to defeat the pack. No human being is going to defeat the pack. So they would hunt and they live in packs for the welfare of their community. So, you know, they can't attain Krishna consciousness, generally speaking, only by some, you know, special mercy. You know, their soul has to transmigrate through all these bodies. So when we get this human body, we become very lucky. You know, we have the opportunity. You know, and Krishna arranges things. He arranges that they are very intelligent people that can somehow ever grasp this purpose of life, because they hear from the most intelligent people in the universe, and they generally, you know, study these books like Srimad, Bhagavatam, the Vedas, especially in other ages. In Kali Yuga, you know, we study different religious scriptures, but we see that, you know, as the Kali Yuga has progressed, you know, everybody worships Lakshmi, but not in her transcendental form. generally speaking, that they simply worship her in the form of profit to exploit their enjoying propensity to the utmost. So in illusion, they think it's because of their work that all this is happening. You know, they think that I'm doing this and creating this. But in reality, it's all simply the celestial beings who are controlling their karma, and they're simply getting the result. And they're really not doing anything at all. The soul is just there as an observer with the super soul, but he doesn't recognize that. An illusion due to false ego. You know, his mind is overwhelmed by these senses, and he's just chasing after his different objects of enjoyment, thinking I am the doer, trying to possess these things. It's an unfortunate situation. But if there are a class of men who understand the Srimad Bhagavatam, then they can teach it to others. And then people become very fortunate when there are a class of people that go out of their way to try to teach this to society with Krishna consciousness. Then we see that whether one be a worker, a working class man, or one is some sort of capitalist, agriculturist, banker, merchant, or whether one is some sort of government person, you know, administrator or an attorney, a prosecutor, or a defense attorney, or statesman, whatever it may be, you know, soldier, warrior, general. They can take advantage of hearing from those Brahmins and also go back home to God. They can also become Krishna's devotees. Just like in the Indian army, you know, they worship Krishna and Arjuna. Just like, you know, the Christians have their chaplain and you have their church, even in the military. So similarly in the Indian army, you have Krishna and Arjuna. Of course, the Muslims probably have their little monster because the Indian army is made up of, you know, Muslims and Sikhs and Buddhists as well as probably not many Buddhists. That's probably some Christians. Very diverse, and they provide, just like in college, you go to college and there's each Christian sect has their little church or chaplain or chapel, and you have a chaplain. And even at some of the bigger schools, you'll find a Hindu chaplain there. And not many times, but sometimes, you know, it's actually an ISKCON devotee who has such a post. So, everybody in society can become a devotee and go back home to Godhead. We just like you see any temple, and then around that temple is supported by all the Sudras, Vaishyas, and Kshatriyas. The Brahmins are there doing all the work, and at the same time they're performing all the samskaras or rituals for people growing up in the world. And but the world is supporting them and supporting the temple so that these functions can continue to go on, so they can continue to offer Krishna bhoga and then take that prasad after Krishna has enjoyed it and distribute it to everybody. They can take the Harinam Sankirtan Yaga out of the temple. They can take the deity out of the temple and have their raka. And that way everybody benefits. But without the support of all the Kshatriyas protecting the temple from any sort of offensive thing, just like you can't go into the Jagannath Puri temple without passing the guard. And if one is bad in the temple, they come in and they beat you with sticks and chase you out. Posted in front of our temple, Krishna Balaram temple, there's the guards, and the guard also has the responsibility of ringing the bell on the hour, because there's a guard up every night watching over everything. So the Kshatriyas are protecting the temple. The legislators are passing laws. They pass a law that, the deity's property can't be taken away, or they pass a law that you can't drive too fast in front of his temple. They post a sign. The police enforce that law so that people just don't go speeding by while trying to make money or trying to do whatever their job is. And we see that so much wealth comes from the people who have wealth in society. Like if we go to Tirupati, you see that sometimes people fly in on a helicopter and they bring the deities, all sorts of wealth because Lord Balaji, Venkateshwara, he's not a poor god. So people, one time I went there and all we had was some plastic pearls that looked like real pearls. Because, and Srila Prabhupada, he didn't have us purchase real jewelry to put on the deities because he said it would just attract thieves. So we basically offer costume jewelry, sometimes some semi-precious type of stuff. But very seldom real gold and silver and diamonds and coil and, rupees and different types of gems. But at Tirupati it's different. They're offered real gold and silver. And there's very strict accounting to make sure nothing's taken. And even the government oversees it to make sure nobody is embezzling anything. So anyway, I went there and we had these big pearls that looked real, but they wasn't in the majority. I think they thought they were real, so they gave us a special darshan. Took the pearls, but later they probably were dismayed when they found out that they wasn't real pearls.
What, you gave it to them?
You and me gave it to them.
But why did they take you inside and let you stand there for longer, I wonder?
Because they thought we would
Why did they know that? They didn't know that you gave them that.
No, they don't think that their costumes, in the West we would know that, but not there because so many people offer real things. So
I was wondering why they keep it in there so long. Everybody else gets to go so fast.
No, we didn't fool Balaji. But we wasn't asking for so many material things. People they want their child to do well in school, and so they purchase a little silver thing where it's written there, may my child do good in school, and then they put that in the donation box. That way the Lord collects all the silver and gold. So, there's even big Christian churches and with the streets of mosques where there's so much money that comes into the hands of people playing the role of Brahmins. And it's meant to be used for Brahminical purposes, to feed people. They distribute that charity. They worship God in a grand way, but they make so many arrangements. They print so many books of real knowledge, and they disperse those books, and they organize some ways of teaching people. So all that is done, because of the support of Vaishyas primarily and Kshatriyas. But then, if it wasn't for the Sudra people, nothing would get done, because just like we see Giridhari, he's playing a role like that. So during this pandemic, he went mad painting everything. He's just painting everything. Everything's getting painted. Well, if we need something done, we call up Sesha. Especially if it has anything to do with electricity. Because he's expert. Just like, Lakshmi Narayan may be able to do something with a computer. If he has some problem with the wiring in his house, we'll tell him to go and fix it. It may be difficult. But if you call up Sesha, he can go and fix it, just like my daughter had some problem in her house. And my brother-in-law tried to fix it, and he almost fixed it, but he didn't fix it. Call up Sesha, he went in there and looked at it, and he said, well, you got the wire crossed. He uncrossed the wire, put him in the right place, and bingo, it worked. Simply because, he's expert. So, they make everything happens. They're like the legs of society. Society won't move without them. Most of the society is made up of the working class man, so the job can get done. So it's all Krishna's arrangement for us, so that we can live a good life here, but at the same time that purpose, the real purpose of life for a human being, our real purpose isn't to just enjoy like the animal. The animal is just thinking how nice it is to eat and sleep and mate, and then be able to defend itself from, the creature that hunts it. That's the life in the animal kingdom. Everything is food and looking for food. So, they tried to defend themselves, but one time on my Facebook thing, I took a picture of this big fly that had been captured by a spider. And the spider was wrapping him up, and then just dragged him into his web to drink his blood. So he couldn't get away. So it's like that in the animal kingdom. So as human beings, we have a better purpose than just repeating this cycle of birth and death, hoping that we go up to become an Indra or some celestial being. But it may not be so if our karma is bad, and who can say? You try to be good, but then you get mixed up in something and create some ill results simply because you fell prey to the illusory energy. You made mistakes, or you were illusioned. You thought this was all right to enjoy, but you found out it wasn't. And then one has to suffer the result. A very difficult world, the material world. But if we follow the Lord in his pure devotees, then Krishna his teachings will always be good. Just like Srila Prabhupada, he told us, stay away from intoxicants. Very dangerous. Just stay away. But our society is a very intoxicating society. If they're not selling this, they're selling that. And if it's not legal, it's illegal. And people are just buying it, trying to enjoy a little bit, trying to stay out of pain. A lot of people become habituated simply because they were trying to stay out of pain, because the material world is such a painful place. They just want to be free from pain. And that you give them something and it helps for a little while, and the person becomes habituated to it, because he just wants to be out of pain. So a very dangerous place, this world. We have to listen to the advice of the pure devotee. He says, don't mess with these intoxicants. It's very dangerous. Very dangerous. We can't imitate Lord Shiva, or very, very powerful beings. We can't, we have to listen to the spiritual master. He says, don't take intoxication. With the speak of gambling. Person just wants to make money for Krishna. It's not bad. But then you become habituated to trying to make quick money for Krishna. And a person can become so enthralled and overwhelmed that they lose all their money gambling. Just like Maharaj used to. Or Maharaj, who was it? Neela. That's a wonderful story. What's his wife's name? Damayanti? Damayanti and Neela. She stuck with him. And ultimately, by hearing that story, one can also escape the Kali Yuga. Just like chanting the Maha Mantra. It's such a powerful story. Kali takes part in that story also. So you see, Khatri is challenged. It's their nature to meet a challenge, but they're up against a great cheater, and they get cheated. They get cheated. So, do they really think they're going to defeat the house, these big gambling casinos? You can't. That's how the gambling casino makes money and profit and pays its employees and pays taxes and get rich. Because they take advantage of people thinking they're going to go there and get rich. But you never do. Only a few every now and then. But still people go, don't they? I mean, right now counting. Our road is paved because of taxes from gambling casinos. So, we have to listen to the spiritual master, don't fall prey to these things. They'll kill you. And what does Krishna say in the Upanishad? The killer of the soul, whomever he may be. It may be Bhakta so-and-so, it may be Prabhu so-and-so, maybe even Maharaj. But the killer of the soul, whomever he may be, enters into the planets of the world of the faithless, full of darkness and ignorance. We can't escape, that type of life. If we take part in it, we try to enjoy it, we eat the fruit, then you get the result. One may come crawling back and running back and chanting Hare Krishna. But if they go back again, you may die in that state of mind. You may die in that state of mind. And then, certainly Krishna protects, but, there's always a story, isn't there? The story of so-and-so. Just like there's the story of Anjali. Or there's the story of Maharaj Bharat, whom Prabhupada talked about when he was here. And we have to try to have they wanted to have a festival on that day, but it'll be an internal festival because of the pandemic, we can't really make everything real big and invite the public and get the New Orleans Temple to come and all that sort of stuff. So we'll do something, I don't know exactly when yet, but it's a Saturday, August 1st. So when Prabhupada was here, he spoke about Maharaj Bharat. How Maharaj Bharat, was a very powerful and great person, not just an ordinary Maharaj. That is whom Bharatavarsha is named after. He was the son of an avatar, Rishabhadev. And he was the world emperor, and he renounced it all and went off to just go back home, back to Godhead. But made one little mistake. His heart was just too compassionate, you could say. And he helped a little baby deer. That was all he did, was help his baby deer, whose mother was forced to desert it because of an attack by the lion. She had to run. The deer was left there, and Maharaj Bharat saved it and became attached to a pet, just like so many of us around here. Just attached to our pet. People need that unconditional love. And we're not finding it in Krishna. We're not finding it in the spiritual master. We're not finding it in the devotees. We're going to find it somewhere. So a pet gives unconditional love because you feed it. So it loves you. And even to the extent that don't they make up these little mechanical devices, some little high-tech device. It's not as popular as it was maybe 10 years ago. That people take around their pet, which is in the form of, like on an iPod. It's just an electronic game.
They feed it too.
And they take it around and they feed it. Or they even enter into a world, like I heard this story of one girl whose mother had become habituated to living in the virtual world. She was taking care of her life in the virtual world. It had forgot about the real world. And the daughter was becoming so frustrated because the mother paid absolutely no attention to her. She was doing all the housework, she was going to school and doing all the homework, and all the mother was doing was sitting upstairs playing in her virtual world. And she even had a virtual children. And she even had one that was named after her daughter, and the daughter saw it on the computer screen and didn't even like the clothes she was wearing. And she became so angry that she went upstairs when the mother was sleeping. The mother would fall asleep right next to the computer after playing and playing and playing. The mother couldn't even wake up, and the daughter sat there and went on and burned the whole house down. The next day when she came back from school, the mother punished her for burning up her virtual world. So, everybody's trying to get some unconditional love. But, we can't find it just in lower creatures. We're meant to protect them. But yet we're dependent on them for what we should be getting from Krishna. But because, people don't know Krishna, they don't know how to develop that love with Krishna, they have no relationship with Krishna, they don't even have a spiritual master, they don't even trust a spiritual master, they don't trust anyone, because everyone cheats you. They don't even trust the scientists. But yet we utilize everything they make. We're even hoping they're going to come up with a vaccine. We certainly don't trust the government. Everybody's just trying to exploit one another, including the government. They're trying to exploit our taxes, just like I got a letter from our dear friend Asok. You probably wouldn't want me to tell you, but everybody knows he has cancer and he's actually devoted to pray for him. So in the midst of this huge health crisis, now the state of Alabama is going to perform an audit on his taxes for 2016, 17, and 18. And he said during that time, his accounting wasn't the best. So, he's in a dilemma because the state wants its money. It's like if we read the story of Ramananda Rai's family in Chaitanya Leela. So, I can't remember his name, Gopi. He was the incarnation of Bhima, the second son of Maharaj Pandu in the form of Ramananda Rai's father. It was the Roy family, but I can't remember his father's first name, but the surname is Roy. So Ramananda Rai. Ramananda was Arjuna, the third son. So the second son incarnated, worked for the government and was a tax collector. He would collect many taxes, and the government paid them by like a commission. So much, you collect this much and you get so much commission. So this particular son did a lot for the devotees. I mean, he was having big festivals, he was feeding people, he was doing so many things, but he was taking more than his commission. So one day this is the government of Maharaj Prataparuja, a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya. So one day he insulted Maharaj Prataparuja's son, the prince. So the prince knew what was going on. He was so insulted that he attacked him by making a case against him, that he's stealing from the government.
Patanaik.
Huh?
Patanaika. Gopinath
Gopinath Patanaika. Yeah. It's a really nice story. I think it's in the Madhya, toward the end of the Madhya. So, he became arrested, and he was going to be thrown up from like a balcony, dropped onto some soil that was standing upright. His punishment, because he couldn't repay the money. So all the devotees, of course, were crying. Oh Krishna, oh Lord Chaitanya, help him, help him. This is Ramananda Rai's brother, this is, so-and-so's family, they're your great devotees. Please help him. Lord Chaitanya, he said, now you're coming to me, asking me to help people who are involved in worldly affairs. I'm a sannyasi. You shouldn't be bothering me about this. But they would plead that he's your devotee. Finally, Lord Chaitanya said, I don't want to hear no more. And I'll leave this place if you continue to bother me. So eventually, it came to the attention of the king. And the king immediately went there and released him. He doubled his salary. and told him if there's anything he needs, just let him know. And he apologized to him. But then when he went before Lord Chaitanya chastised him. Don't ever take more than, which you have been designated. Don't steal from the government. He chastised him like that. So, that's the nature of the material world. We think we can take, but it belongs to somebody. Ultimately, it belongs to Krishna. And we're not supposed to take more than what we deserve or is allotted by providence. If we take more, we get in trouble. Just like if you take more than what you can eat, you get in trouble. Especially if it's day after day. You get in trouble. You get sick. And eventually you'll die early. So that's just the rules of the laws of nature. But if we learn to live like the pure devotees and don't take more than our quota, then the Upanishads say that one will not even be subject to the law of karma by living like that. We understand what Krishna has allotted. We take only what Krishna has allotted, not more. And we live, a Krishna conscious life. Then one who lives in that way, they are not even subject to the law of karma. It says in the third verse of Isa Upanishad. I can't remember exactly right now. But you can look it up. Third verse of the Isa Upanishad. Or maybe it's the second verse. But those who take more, that Upanishad says, they are the killer of the soul. And they will fall into the darkest region of ignorance. So, we don't want to join that lot. In Kali Yuga, it's easy to join that lot because that comprises most of society. Everybody in society is just chasing after sense enjoyment. And, it's only due to Lord Chaitanya's Hare Krishna movement that, somehow ever we're bringing about some Satya Yuga, some age of goodness, where people can, escape all the bad karma that's going around. I mean, we shouldn't be fooled and think that, they got such good karma, they have so much money, and they have so many good things. But we see they're always fighting wars, and they're always, they have health problems, they have so many problems. We need Lord Chaitanya's movement to make everything good because the lower modes are, destroying everything. Because of Lord Chaitanya, everything's becoming nice. When Lord Chaitanya's movement leaves, Prabhupada would say, you better take the opportunity to get out now. Because when it leaves, if you take birth in Kali Yuga after Lord Chaitanya's movement, then, you really get to suffer. It's going to be, dog eat dog. Just like they say, those sayings, the rat race. It'll really be like that. So Lord Chaitanya's movement here, we need to support it. We need to help it. Just like, Arjuna did his job after Krishna enlightened him. Even though he was a general, he had to go out there and fight that war in Krishna consciousness. And then he had to help his brother administrate the government for the next 30-something years before they retired. So they had to do their job in Krishna consciousness, though. So similarly, we just do our job in Chaitanya consciousness. We help the Sankirtan movement, and then we go back home to Godhead. And, become real enjoyers, not false enjoyers. Real enjoyers means that we're always enjoying, helping Krishna. He gives us our little lot, Maybe we're just his servant, do this for me, or maybe we play like his parent, so we have to do that for him, or maybe we're his confidential friend, like Arjuna, and he gives us confidential things to know about and support him with, like that. Or we're just his unalloyed lover, we can't wait to see him, and we know what pleases him. We know how to attract his attention in a pleasurable way. And we know what he likes, and we get that for him. And so whatever our rasa, or the way we like to love Krishna is, then that will all come to be more and more manifest until it manifests actually in the spiritual world, where no longer do we have any of these material problems. Okay, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.